They told you to be strong, to calm down, to hold it together. But no one ever taught you how. So here you are, 26, 33, maybe 41. And life still feels like a pressure test you never trained for. You smile through the meetings, nod through the noise, hold your breath just long enough for the panic to pass. And yet, the smallest thing breaks you. A missed call, a delay, a cold stare. Why? You're not broken. You're not soft. You're not too sensitive. You've just never been taught what real mental strength actually is. Because here's the truth. Mental strength isn't a quote. It's not about shutting your emotions off. It's about carrying your chaos without losing your center. But most of us, we've been trained to perform, not to endure. To escape discomfort before it cracks the mask. To label silence as failure. To run every time stillness starts speaking. And now we're exhausted. Not because we're doing too much, but because we keep dodging the one thing that would actually make us stronger. Weight, emotional weight, cognitive friction, the heaviness of staying still, without collapsing. This video is not a dopamine boost, it's a reckoning. Because behind your overthinking, behind your burnout, behind your I'm fine smile, there's a storm that's been waiting to be felt, properly. We're going to talk about the kind of strength no one claps for. The kind that isn't loud, shiny, or motivational. The kind that happens when no one's watching, and you still don't quit. We'll break down the lies that make you feel like a failure for feeling too much. We'll use Nietzsche, neuroscience, and cold truth to rebuild what was never shown to you. The art of becoming mentally untouchable without losing your humanity. Because your mind doesn't need another productivity hack. It needs depth. It needs friction. It needs direction inside the chaos. And if you stay with me until the end, I promise, you won't just feel seen. You'll feel something you haven't felt in years. Prepared. You think you're mentally weak because you cry too easily, because you overthink, because you can't let things go. But that's not it. You're not weak because you feel too much. You're weak because you don't know how to feel without collapsing. Mental weakness today hides in plain sight. It's not the breakdowns. It's the silence you can't sit with. It's the boredom that turns into panic. The emptiness you try to fill with scrolling, noise, achievement, anything but presence. You're strong in motion, but fragile in stillness. And that's not your fault. You were taught how to chase goals, how to appear tough, how to stay busy enough to avoid falling apart. But no one taught you how to hold yourself through the internal storm. You panic when the world quiets down, because in that silence, something surfaces. A thought, a memory, a feeling that has no name, only weight. And suddenly you're not in control anymore. Here's the hidden truth. Most people today are emotionally untrained. Not broken, not lazy, not soft, untrained. Because emotional durability isn't built from suppressing your feelings. It's built from learning how to stay present with them, to watch them rise, and not flinch. But we were taught the opposite. We were taught that independence means having no needs, that strength means not asking for help, that freedom means doing everything alone. And so we carry this silent fear. What if I can't hold it all together? What if I break and no one sees me? The truth is, many of us already are broken, but we've just become really good at pretending we're not. We smile at brunch, we laugh on Zoom, we post the quote about healing, but inside, there's a loop that keeps repeating, I'm almost okay. I almost made it. I'm almost in control. Almost, but not quite. And the reason is simple. We're trying to fight an internal war with borrowed armor, external validation, productivity, performance. But nothing external can fix a mind that's never been taught how to suffer with integrity. Because yes, suffering is part of this. Not as punishment, but as training. Discomfort is the gym your mind avoids. Every time you numb, scroll, flee, or fake it, you're reinforcing the idea that you can't handle your own storm. And the brain remembers. But the moment you choose to stay, even for a breath longer than before, you shift. You interrupt the pattern. You start building something stronger than confidence. Containment. The ability to hold yourself, especially when nothing outside of you is holding you up. This is emotional durability. And most people never learn it. Because no one told you, your strength isn't in how little you feel. It's in how deeply you can feel, without falling apart. And that's what we're here to train. You've been told to chase happiness, to think positive, to keep your vibe high. But Friedrich Nietzsche would call that a mental disease. He didn't admire calm people. He didn't respect the ones who smiled through chaos with forced optimism. He respected those who could digest pain without flinching, the ones who knew that suffering wasn't the enemy, but the fuel. And he was right, because strength isn't how well you escape pain. It's how well you carry it without losing yourself. Most of us aren't weak because we suffer. We're weak because we've never trained to suffer meaningfully. You say you want peace, but deep down, what you crave isn't comfort, it's weight. Something to hold on to, something to fight for, something that makes your pain make sense. And that's the difference Nietzsche saw between the herd and the human. The herd seeks comfort. The human seeks meaning through the discomfort. It's why he wrote, "He who has a why can bear almost any how." But what if you have no why? What if the weight you carry feels random, unfair, unbearable? Then it crushes you. And that's what's happening today. People break not because life is too hard, but because they're carrying weight with no structure, no inner container, no reason beneath the suffering. So we start escaping, numbing, scrolling, working until our hands bleed, not out of purpose, but panic. Nietzsche called this the last man, the kind of person who avoids every depth, every risk, every confrontation, and ends up soulless in comfort. You've felt this, that ghost-like detachment from your own life, where nothing hurts enough to change you, but nothing feels enough to move you either. And so you drift, half numb, half alive. But Nietzsche offers a different path, not the path of happiness, the path of heaviness, of willingly embracing the pain that shapes you, instead of resisting it endlessly. It's called the will to power, not power over others, but over your own chaos. The ability to look at the storm and say, let's build something here. This is the exact opposite of positive thinking. This is brutal, grounded, spiritual friction. You don't ask the universe to remove the pain. You ask it to increase your capacity. And in doing that, you stop living like a leaf in the wind. You begin to root. This is where Amor Fati enters. The radical act of loving your fate, not tolerating it, not surviving it, but saying, even this pain belongs. Even this weight makes me. Most people never get there. They keep running in circles, chasing highs, avoiding lows. But you're not here for numbness. You're here to become unfuckwithable, to take what broke you and turn it into armor that breathes. So stop chasing happiness. Start building weight. Because nothing transforms your mind like the friction you stop fleeing. You don't need more willpower. You need to stop fighting your own biology. Because mental strength isn't a mindset. It's a neurochemical war. And if you're always losing that war, it's because you were never taught how to fight it. Dr. Andrew Huberman, neuroscientist at Stanford, explains that every time you feel anxious, overwhelmed, or emotionally fragile, you're not failing. You're wired that way. Your brain is doing exactly what it was trained to do: escape discomfort at all costs. Why? Because your brain runs on a balance of two powerful forces: cortisol, the stress signal, and dopamine, the motivation molecule. Cortisol spikes when you feel trapped. Dopamine spikes when you face stress voluntarily. Let that sink in. When life happens to you and you feel cornered, your brain floods with cortisol. You freeze, panic, shut down. But when you lean into discomfort, even if it's hard, your brain rewards you with a dopamine drip. And that drip builds the very thing you've been craving: resilience. This explains why cold exposure works, why journaling through pain helps, why eye fixation techniques and stress inoculation training aren't just hacks, they're rewiring tools. Huberman calls this process self-directed neuroplasticity, the ability to reshape your mind by the way you respond to discomfort. But let's make it real. Picture Jake, a 29-year-old in Denver. Wakes up, checks his phone, sees a passive-aggressive text from his boss. Cortisol spikes. His brain screams, avoid. So he skips breakfast, scrolls for 30 minutes, doesn't reply. By 10 a.m., he's spiraling. Now imagine this instead. He reads the text, breathes deep, puts his phone down, walks outside. 2 minutes of cold air. Then he writes in his notes, what part of this triggers fear? His brain still feels stress, but this time, it's chosen stress. And that shifts the chemistry. That gives his system what Huberman calls agency in adversity. This isn't self-help fluff. This is measurable biology. It means you don't need to be fearless. You just need to stop fleeing by default. Every time you scroll past discomfort, you reinforce the escape loop. Every time you delay the hard conversation, you teach your brain, I can't handle this. But every time you step toward the discomfort, your brain changes, your body adapts, your identity upgrades. You stop living as prey. You become the architect of your response. So no, you're not anxious because you're weak. You're anxious because your brain thinks you're still the child who wasn't safe during chaos. It's time to retrain it. Start small, deliberate cold showers, 2 minutes of friction journaling, no edits, no filters, visual anchoring during stressful calls. Fix your eyes on one point and breathe. These aren't hacks, they're signals. Signals to your nervous system that say, I can stay, I can hold this, I'm not afraid anymore. And when you send those signals enough, the war changes sides. And that's how you become mentally untouchable. You think you're reacting to that tone of voice, that sudden silence, that unexpected text, but you're not. According to Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, one of the leading neuroscientists on emotion in the world, you're not reacting, you're predicting, and you're doing it wrong. Here's what that means. Your emotions are not raw responses to the world around you. They're guesses based on past experiences, old wiring, and outdated scripts you forgot you memorized. So when you feel rejected before someone even speaks, or when your stomach drops at a harmless comment, or when you spiral after a delay in someone's text, you're not feeling the moment. You're feeling your forecast of it. And most of us, we're forecasting failure, abandonment, threat on autopilot. This is what Barrett discovered. Emotions aren't happening to you. They're constructed by you, using pieces of your past. So that breakdown you had last week, that panic during a meeting, that rage you couldn't explain, it wasn't the present moment. It was a prediction gone wrong. And if your predictions are built on unprocessed pain, they're going to keep collapsing your mind over and over. But here's the power in that. If your brain is constructing emotion, you can reconstruct it. You can interrupt the forecast. You can give your nervous system a new blueprint, not by force, not by denial, but by becoming aware of the prediction and choosing to stay present long enough to break it. Let's make this real. Imagine Erica, 35, Boston, single mom, recovering from a toxic relationship. Her coworker forgets to say good morning. Her chest tightens. Thoughts rush in. She's mad at me. I messed up. I'm annoying. Old forecast. Old script. But this time she pauses. She places a hand on her chest, whispers, "This isn't now. This is before." And in that moment, she doesn't collapse. She stays, and the forecast shifts. This isn't toxic positivity. It's neuroscience. It's reclaiming authorship of your emotional life, not by controlling it, but by decoding it. You don't fix your mind by suppressing the storm. You fix it by tracing the weather pattern that created it. Because if your body is reacting to predicted pain, then your job isn't to stop feeling, it's to feel accurately. This is emotional intelligence 2.0, not react better, but predict wiser. And you do that by slowing down the loop, by asking, is this what's really happening, or is this what I've been taught to expect? That question alone can save you years of spirals, because once you realize you're not broken, just forecasting pain from an outdated script, you stop hating yourself for the noise. You begin to rewrite it, and that's how clarity begins. Not when the world gets quieter, but when your inner forecast finally aligns with the present. If your emotions are predictions, as Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett revealed, then what happens when the script you've been using is based on survival, not truth? You become a performer, a specialist in pretending, and the mask you wear begins to replace the person underneath. Most people don't realize it. They say they're fine. They stay busy. They joke, deliver, fix, lead. But every moment of stillness threatens to crack the illusion, because deep down, they know they're not strong. They're scared. Scared of being seen without the mask. Scared of collapsing without applause. Scared of discovering that their entire identity is a forecast built from fear. And so they overcorrect. They become hyperindependent. They carry everything alone, not because they're truly capable, but because they've convinced themselves it's the only way to be safe. You see this everywhere. Men who confuse detachment with control. Women who turn competence into armor. Leaders who only know how to give, not receive. All of them repeating the same emotional prediction. If I show weakness, I lose value. But here's the cost. Their inner world becomes a locked vault. No softness allowed, no real intimacy, no true rest. Only performance, only function, only exhaustion dressed as discipline. Let's bring it closer. Jason, 34, Brooklyn, freelancer, gym every day, solid income, well-spoken. But lately, he's been zoning out during client calls, skipping meals, lying awake at 3:12 a.m. with tight lungs and no tears, because no one sees him, not even himself. And that's the danger. When your identity becomes a mask, you stop noticing how far you've drifted from yourself, and eventually, you break, not with drama, but in quiet, irreversible ways, in decisions you don't remember making, in connections you slowly lose, in a life that looks full but feels hollow. That's what we call the hyperindependent collapse. It's not loud. It's internal corrosion. It's what happens when you predict that vulnerability equals danger, and so you build a life without it. But here's the reframe. What if vulnerability wasn't collapse, but release? What if letting yourself be human, even for 2 minutes, wasn't weakness, but the start of real strength? The kind that doesn't need applause, the kind that doesn't need to be performed, the kind that can sit with fear and still choose truth. You're not here to wear a mask until it fuses to your face. You're here to recognize when the mask was useful and when it's time to take it off. Because the script that says I must handle everything alone isn't a prophecy. It's just a pattern, and patterns can be broken. Start with this. You don't need to be unbreakable. You need to be real. And from that place, healing is no longer a betrayal of strength. It becomes the highest form of it. There's a moment in every transformation that feels like death. Not because you're dying, but because the part of you that needed to pretend is finally being asked to stop. And when you strip away the mask, there it is. The thought, that single quiet sentence that has haunted you in every silent room. I'm not enough. No one would notice if I disappeared. I'll never be truly loved. I always ruin things. Whatever it is, you know it. And it knows you. Most people spend their whole lives running from this sentence, filling the calendar, fixing other people, scrolling, numbing, working, pretending. But here's the invitation. Don't run this time. Sit down, alone, no phone, no music, no distractions. Close your eyes, breathe, and call the thought forward. Let it speak, let it echo, let it press on your chest like it always does. But this time, don't fight it. Don't reframe it. Don't argue with it. Just hold it. 2 full minutes. You'll feel the tremble, the instinct to move, to escape, to reject, but stay. Because this is emotional strength training. This is the cold exposure of the psyche. This is where fake resilience dies and real power begins. The Stoics called it premeditatio malorum, preparing the mind by imagining the worst and meeting it without fear. Modern trauma therapy calls it containment, the ability to sit with a painful memory without being swallowed by it. Dr. Andrew Huberman calls it stress inoculation, voluntarily facing discomfort to retrain the nervous system toward strength. You can call it whatever you want, but what it really is ownership. Because the moment you hold the thought without fleeing, you prove something to your brain it's been waiting to hear for years. We don't need to run anymore. And that single message rewires everything. Let's go back to Jason, the one from Brooklyn, the freelancer. He tries it. He sits alone in his apartment, closes his laptop, turns off the lights, holds the sentence, I ruin everything I touch. His stomach tightens, his hands sweat, his jaw locks, but he stays. 2 minutes, and when the timer goes off, he's not fixed, he's not healed, but he's still here. And that's the win. Because strength isn't measured in how fast you escape, it's measured in how long you can stay, with the weight, the fear, the truth, and still breathe. Do this once, and it will shake you. Do it regularly, and it will shape you. Not into someone fearless, but into someone untouchable in your honesty. You don't need to fight the thought. You just need to prove to yourself that it no longer owns you. 2 minutes. That's the doorway. To discipline, to clarity, to becoming someone who feels the storm and stays anyway. You've held the thought that breaks you. You didn't flinch. You stayed. Now comes the real work. Forging. Your mind is not a temple. It's a forge. And that pain you felt? That wasn't weakness, that was heat. Every time you enter discomfort and choose to stay, you walk into fire. And the question becomes, will you melt or will you temper? Nietzsche spoke of transformation through suffering, not just surviving pain but becoming someone different because of it. David Goggins, a modern blacksmith of the mind, lives this. Pain isn't to be avoided. Pain is the hammer, and the anvil, you. You don't find yourself in this life. You forge yourself, strike by strike, moment by moment. And the most powerful moments, they happen when no one is watching, when no one claps, when it's just you and the fire. You've been taught to fear these moments, to numb them. But these are the exact conditions transformation demands. Pressure, heat, friction, repetition. No one becomes strong without first burning. Picture it. It's 6:30 a.m. The alarm goes off. You're exhausted. Your first thought is, I can't. That's the fire. You choose to rise anyway. Strike. It's 2 p.m. Your inbox is full. Your anxiety spikes. You want to distract, flee, shut down. You pause, breathe, face it, strike. It's 10:45 p.m. You're alone. The loneliness creeps in. That aching thought. You'll always be like this. You don't scroll. You don't text your ex. You sit with it. Strike. This is how metal becomes weapon. This is how the mind becomes sovereign. Not by pretending you're above pain, but by returning to it deliberately until the pattern bends. And yes, it bends. Neuroscience confirms it. Repeated exposure to discomfort without escape rewires your threat response. It builds emotional anti-fragility, not just tolerance, but growth through stress. And that's what forging is. You don't break the fire. You let it reshape you, but only if you show up, daily, intentionally, without needing to be motivated, without waiting to be ready. Just showing up to the fire and saying, strike me, let's go again. Because here's the final truth. Discipline is not perfection. It's repetition under pressure. And strength is not found in the absence of hardship, but in the precision of who you become because of it. You are the blacksmith. Your fears are the metal. And your daily choices, they are the hammer. So stop asking the world to mold you. Stop waiting for peace to arrive. Step into the forge and start striking. Because the mind you want doesn't exist yet. It has to be forged. And you're the only one who can do it. Maybe what you've been calling broken isn't broken at all. Maybe it's just unprocessed power. Because after all the noise, all the loops, all the inner collapse, there's something inside you that refuses to die. It's quiet, but it's still there. Not hope, not motivation, something deeper, direction. And that's the final shift. You don't need a life without pain. You need a reason inside the pain. You don't need silence outside. You need to be the one who stops screaming inside the noise. This is what Nietzsche called amor fati. Not just accepting your fate, but loving it. Choosing to see even the worst moments of your life as the exact conditions required for your strength to emerge. Not in a poetic way, in a real, lived, grown through it kind of way. Because by now you've learned, peace is not the absence of chaos. It's the refusal to run from it. That's where direction is born. Direction doesn't mean you know exactly where you're going. It means you're finally moving from your center, not your trauma. You're choosing to walk, not escape, to carry, not avoid, to stay present inside your own life, even when it stings. And that shift, it changes everything. Imagine this. Tomorrow, the same storm hits. The email, the silence, the thought that used to break you. But this time, you pause. You remember the forge. You breathe. You feel the fire rise, and you stay anyway. Not because it feels good, but because you know, this is where the work is. And suddenly, something clicks. The chaos doesn't own you anymore. You're walking with it. You're not begging for safety. You're building strength through clarity. This is real transformation. Not the overnight kind. Not the new you in 30 days kind. The kind that sticks because it was built in friction. The kind that says, I still get anxious. I still feel lost sometimes. But I no longer believe that means I'm broken. Because now you know, every ache was training. Every collapse was rehearsal. Every thought you survived was a signal. There's more in you than you've been told. And it's not too late to meet that version. The one that's not perfect, but present. Not always calm, but clear, not fearless, but directed. You don't need to escape, you need to align. So say it. This weight is mine. This fire is mine. This chaos is mine. And I'll walk through it fully awake. Because you're not just surviving anymore, you're returning to yourself. And if this spoke to you, not just to your mind, but to your spirit, then keep walking with me. There's more, much more. But for now, hold this truth. You never needed perfect peace. You only needed the strength to stop running from your own life. And now, you have it. If you've made it here, you didn't just watch a video, you walked through the fire with me. And maybe for the first time in a long time you realized you don't need fixing, you need witnessing. You need spaces that don't shame your storms, but teach you how to walk through them awake. That's what this space is for. So if something in this spoke to the part of you that never gets seen, don't disappear now. Let me know you're here. Comment below. Just one line. Tell me the thought that used to break you. Or write, I'm ready to stop running. Not for the algorithm. For you, to mark this moment. And if you felt this was what you needed to hear today, there's more coming. More fire. More clarity. More truth that cuts past the surface. So hit subscribe. Not because you need another voice in your feed, but because you're ready to train your mind for the life you were meant to live. And if someone you care about is drowning silently, send this to them. It could be the breath they didn't know they were waiting for. You've carried enough alone. Now it's time to build strength. Together. This was Leaked Mind. And you? You're not just surviving anymore. You're becoming.